Effective communication isn't just about being clear, rather, it's about being heard and understood. Well, today we'll be talking about one of the fundamental components of communication, which is verbal communication. However, the irony is it holds a fraction of a weightage when it comes to the theory of communication. But we will touch this in our next video when we talk about non-verbal communication. So, what is verbal communication? Well, the answer is very simple. Verbal communication is the use of words, or for that matter, we can say the use of a language, because words are part of a language. It plays a very important role in our day-to-day life, be it a casual talk or a business. There are two formats of verbal communication. The first one is oral and the second one is written. Oral is the spoken part. It could be in the form of a presentation, a speech, a conversation, and so on. Written is the one which we type or write. This could be in the form of a letter, a document, an email, etc. etc. The key elements of verbal communication are the sender, the message, the medium, whether it is oral or written, and the receiver. When all of these function in synchronization, it leads to effective and powerful verbal communication. One important and integral part of verbal communication is verbal cue. So now, what is verbal cue? Well, verbal cue is a prompt which we use during our conversations. It is classified into two categories: direct verbal cue and indirect verbal cue. Let's look at both of these individually. Direct verbal cue. Direct verbal cue is when the receiver knows exactly what needs to be done. For example, could you shut the door? In this case, the message is clear. The receiver knows what he or she needs to do. This is direct verbal cue. Now, coming to the next one, indirect verbal cue. In this, the receiver needs to interpret it according to his or her instincts. For example, it's quite cold in here. Now, in this case, the receiver needs to understand based on his instincts what needs to be done. This is called as indirect verbal cue. Let's look at this in this way. Direct verbal cues are explicit messages where the listener knows what exactly needs to be done or what is expected from the listener. Whereas non-direct verbal cues are subtle hints where the listener needs to infer and act accordingly.